Okay, everyone. This is Bar Down Breakdown again with this absolute nonsense. We are still on the air. Our sponsors haven't pulled out yet, which is unbelievable. My room is not as messy as usual, and that's because, we've got Nick. What's going on, Nick? Nick is our homie from Chief State. Super duper excited to chat with him. We've had him on a long time ago. I think back in 2020, wasn't it?
Yep. It was like the week of COVID or something like that. Like the week it all went down.
It's the week of COVID. So now that we're talking again, there's going to be a new COVID. It's bullshit. Shouldn't have never done this.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, that was Bar Down Breakdown. See you guys later. No, hey, Nick, man, thank you. Thank you so much for chatting with us, man. Really stoked to have you. I have kind of been following ever since Mikey put me onto you guys, kind of been, following Chief State and all of the happenings and what have you for the past year or two. And, it's been a while, since you guys have put out kind of your last little bit of material. So I'm understanding that there's some cool stuff to come. Won't necessarily press you for it immediately, but I thank you for being on, and cool. So let's just kick it off with what's new. Like, just what's new. I want to know what's new.
Yeah, there's a lot new. I don't, when we had talked last, Tough Love was either just about to come out or it had already come out. It's kind of around that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's new. Unfortunately, just because of COVID and all that, we didn't really get to tour to support that or anything like that. So it's kind of just done stuff online, which has been cool. Because there's no necessarily like viral moment or anything like that. It's not like anything really picked up steam like really super quick, but just kind of like organically over the last like year and a half, almost 2 years. I don't even know how long now, but however many years,
almost 2 years now.
Yeah. Okay. It's just picked up its own kind of steam and just dropped Metaphors in the fall there. Just to kind of show people we're still around, I guess. But
heck yeah, man.
Yeah, last year we recorded a full-length record, and it will be coming out shortly. And there will be a new song out, a single called Team Wiped. In about 2 weeks' time, I believe March 13th, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear, man. That is great news. So let's talk a little bit about the new record. I guess question A: does it have a title that you can reveal?
It does have a title that it's called "Waiting for Your Colors."
Nice.
Spelled the Canadian colors with the U. In it,
dude, I'll never forget when I learned how to spell color the Canadian way, and it was because of City and Color. I was like, what does this mean? I don't get this word. And then I realized
color?
City and Color.
Love that, man. So
exactly.
That's great. We're definitely really, really excited for that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of the process about getting that record kind of written and recorded, just because you guys released I guess like kind of like an EP LP sort of toeing the line. We're talking about 7 songs, and now most times what I kind of find is like people go after 10 or 11 song records or something like that. Sometimes if you're feeling froggy, you'll go for 12, or if you're Origami Angel, you want like 25 or some nonsense.
Great band. My girlfriend just turned me on to them. They're so good.
I just had the opportunity to see them a couple of nights ago on their tour with Spanish Love Songs in the Wonder Years, and there's something else.
I was supposed to see them in Seattle, but they the testing, I guess, hadn't changed to get back into Canada, so we couldn't come down for a day trip. But we had tickets and everything. It was pretty jealous of you, not gonna lie.
I'd love to tell you some nonsense that like you didn't miss much, but that would just really be a lie.
That's all good.
It's it's the Wonder Years are one of those bands that like they've grown up like so much as musicians, where I can recall 10, 11 years ago going to see them, and Dan like would constantly have issues with his voice, and like he could never make it through full sets. And now these guys are so polished, it's almost like like seeing a band like Green Day or like Weezer, who have it down to a science, and they're just so good.
Oh, yeah.
but not to deviate from what we're talking about here. So you guys, you've kind of come along and you have this new full length. So how did it kind of start? Like where did the genesis of it start as far as the writing process is concerned? And then how did it kind of develop into the kind of full concept that you guys did? And just give me a little bit of insight there, please. Love to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, Chief State's always kind of been a weird kind of, like, obviously we're one band and we have one sound, but kind of Fraser and I are kind of the main writers, and we don't often write together, if that makes sense.
Okay.
We will, like, at a certain point, but kind of to get the bones of it out for the most part, like it's either just like me coming up with either something full or just like a fully kind of instrumental kind of fleshed out there, and then he'll add like his lyrics over top, or like he'll just come out with like full songs basically front to back, and I'm just kind of coming in and cleaning some things up, and then Chris gets to add kind of her drum parts there, and it's kind of collaborative in the end, but at least like the seeds of it are kind of very individual. So just in general, I mean, we kind of started to come together pretty shortly after Tough Love had released, because we realized that we weren't going to be able to tour on it. So it was kind of important for us to just get back in the studio right away and start working on something new, something that we, at the tail end of what was hopefully going to be a couple of weeks and then a couple of months, and then now here we are. But so that was kind of the idea of it, was that I think there was just a couple songs that were just in the demo folder from ages ago, that we were able to rework, and a few that just kind of came kind of throughout like most of 2020, basically.
Okay.
For instance, like the first single we're releasing is called Team White. Has nothing to do with anything in the song. I called my demo that because I was playing a lot of Warzone at the beginning of at the beginning of the pandemic. So I just had this like cool idea. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna call it Team White. Here we go. And it just kind of stuck. So so a little bit of that. And I mean, as far as like themes go, or kind of what we were trying to do with it, some of the other guys in the band are a little bit older than I am. They're kind of 30 or touching it, or getting up there. I'm only 24 myself, so they, at least Fraser kind of likes to frame it as it's kind of like going through your 20s. You can almost like, the first track on the record, I think I sent you guys the link to that, but the first track on the record there is called Continental Drift. Probably my favorite track on the record, if I'm being honest. And it's just kind of about like being a little bit older and looking back on like your younger self, and kind of realizing that you didn't necessarily like make the most of all your opportunities, or didn't necessarily live life to your fullest, and just kind of looking back with regret, not necessarily like fully regretful, but just kind of like, damn, I might have missed out on something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And just kind of looking back, retrospectively that way.
Cool.
I can relate. Like, wish I just put more into my 401k at like 21.
Yeah, exactly.
Go into instant replay every Wednesday night.
I mean, like, would you really trade that for the world, though? I mean, like, instant replay.
Hey, if I could retire at 60 instead of 65, yes, I would trade that. Sorry, Tom. Instant
replay had good wings. That's all I could tell you about that. So yeah, like you were talking about kind of the first track of the record, and I'm always interested in hearing kind of the perspective on sequencing and stuff like that. So when you had written like the first track of the record, like did you have like first track of the record like in mind? No. Okay.
So well, kinda.
Okay.
I think originally when I wrote Team White, which is the second track on the record now, in my brain I was like, this would be a really good opener, I think. Okay. But for one reason or another, it was maybe even like 6 months after I'd already finished that, and we already decided and already actually finished completely recording Team White. That song's over like 2 years old now at this point. Okay. Yeah, we recorded it in fall of 2020. So, or not over 2 years old, I guess, like a year and a half, but still, like it's getting up there.
For sure.
And still hasn't seen the light of day, so that's kind of wild. But when I just came up with that, it was just a complete instrumental. I didn't have any words for it at all. Okay. I just kind of, sometimes I'll just kind of have an idea on the guitar, and I'll just kind of bang it out in like in an afternoon, super rough. I'll send it over to Fraser, and he'll be able to kind of throw something on top of it. And that's exactly what happened. And I think once we had kind of finished it a little bit more, it was like, okay, yeah, like this definitely has to start. And then we kind of tailored the ending so that it perfectly leads into Team Wipe. So it's like
cool,
a really cool 1-2 punch off like the hop, which I'm a really big fan of. It's just when you kind of get like two really fast songs off the hop. But even further to that, I think like the rest of the first half of the record even is just kind of like back to back to back to back, like 5 songs in a row of just like kind of they're fast songs. I think they're well paced. I think each one's a little bit different. Kind of tells its own story that way, which I think is kind of what you want. And especially like we're only doing 10 songs. So I kind of want to show a bit of diversity there. It is still a pop punk record. So I mean, take what you will from that. But I don't know. I'd like to think that we really made a record that like myself at 16, I would be stoked to like listen to that if I was just like kind of getting into it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, that's why you write music, right? Like, I mean, like, you write music that you enjoy listening to. Like, I remember like, when I was in bands and I would get masters, like, from stuff that like we've written and recorded, I would listen to it like until the wheels fell off, just because it was something that was so interesting to me. And then like, you listen to it a little bit critically, but then after like you listen to it critically, you just start to listen to it just to kind of, sit back and realize like, wow, this is like, something that didn't exist a year ago that now is tangible, which I think is like, I think that's one of the coolest things about music is the tangibility of it. When it comes down to it, like, you had nothing. It's almost like, if you look at it like physical art, right? I mean, like you've got a blank canvas and then all of a sudden you throw all this stuff onto it, but it's the same. I mean, you have this blank space in between, your two ears, right? And then all of a sudden now there's something, which is really super cool.
For sure. It was awesome. I think for all of us in the band, like this was our first, time tackling like an LP, like for any of us.
For sure.
We've all been in bands before, but just have never done. It's quite the commitment. It's a lot of songs. It's a lot of writing, and I think if you're really doing your due diligence, like and spending the time on it, it's like that much more daunting of a task almost, because at least there's like 4 other people that are always kind of involved in it, and they're kind of just as equally wrapped up in it as you are, and it's like, of course, a super unique situation, I think, and just awesome. Yeah.
And it's like you see that kind of blank whiteboard, right? Like where you put all of the songs. Oh,
it's Joe right there. Let's go.
There it is. I love it.
So I guess I just have a question, because clearly I'm an old fart and I don't play video games anymore. But like, what's the Team Wiped? What is that, like a certain like level on the game, or?
So it's basically you know what Call of Duty is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so basically there's 150 players in like this like smallish map. So it's still pretty big. You're in a squad of 3, so your team is 3. So there's like 50 teams of 3, so 150 total. Anytime you like come across another team and you like, I guess, shoot them and like kill them, which is very violent, but anytime that happens to a full team, it'll give you it'll make a noise, and then on the screen it comes up, it says Team Wiped.
Okay.
So, yeah, usually my team,
did you know that,
team
Tom?
Getting wiped, but
I mean, like I knew of it, but like I wasn't going to like show my cards and like be as grandpa as you were, where you were like, I don't know what Team Wiped is. What is that, Mario? Like Jesus. None of the cool kids are going to listen to this podcast now. They're going to be like, wow, like Mikey hasn't played a video game since Sega Saturn, like just brutal, absolutely brutal.
They don't even know what Sega Saturn is.
Well, that's
I don't know what a Sega Saturn is.
No, you're lucky, because the controller was so stupid and dumb. And the Sega Dreamcast controller was also stupid and dumb. I can talk about how stupid and dumb all the video games were growing up that I played, but I mean, like, but that was kind of like as an interesting way to kind of transition into like the next thing I want to talk about. It's like, so there was, for me growing up, there was always a very like heavy correlation between like playing video games and like listening to music. And I kind of still do it to this day. Like I have really, really deep, like, MLB The Show, like like seasons where like I'm in like my 6th season, and I just like will sometimes like turn the sound off and just throw on music and listen to like a couple of records and just like
I
play
do that
through.
exclusively. Like I don't even think I have the game volume on for.
Yeah.
I play a lot of NHL, and I don't even have like
right.
the game volume on at all.
Yeah, you don't even like you really don't even need to. Like I mean, like maybe when you're first playing it, like you kind of want to understand like the sounds and the haptics of it all, but then like it's just like you can kind of zone out and play a couple games and then just kind of listen to some stuff. So to that end, so talking about your newest record, I guess like what went into we talked about kind of the recording and all that kind of stuff, and so what went into like I guess the production of it? Like were you working with like a producer or something like that was kind of giving you some insight? Yeah, I mean if you can love to hear a little bit about that.
We did the record again. It was produced and engineered by Tim Creviston, also mastered by Tim. Tim's done all of our records basically.
Awesome. Okay.
So nothing more than this. He did a good amount on Tough Love and mixed and mastered that as well, I believe. And then this was a full engineer, full production. And then we sent it to Sam Guyana in Toronto to mix. He's just done loads of pop punk bands. He also did our first release with Mutant League, nothing more than this, and he killed it on the mix this time. It's really took it to a really cool place. But yeah, we just we worked with Tim. It was during COVID, so it wasn't really like we didn't do the whole we're going to get into a studio all together for a couple weeks thing. It was Tim just kind of has his own space, and we sent him basically like the full structures and like our demos of everything. We just kind of worked off of that. I came in first, and we just did like all of the guitars, and then Joe came in. He did some of the bass there, and then we finished off with vocals, and that was kind of it. It took about I want to say like a month probably start to finish. But that was just, we were only in there for maybe a couple hours, a couple times a week sort of deal. It was, a bit of time between everything, but I think we kind of knew roughly where we wanted to take it, but it was cool to see it like evolve over the course of that month for sure.
Yeah. And then I guess to that point as well, working with a producer, I know you said that a lot of the songs are kind of, you and Fraser kind of just like are building them yourselves. So I always like to ask this question to people just because you kind of get different responses from everybody. But what was the experience like? I mean, I know you did it with Tough Love, but on this new record, what was the experience like having, someone kind of do production on these songs and maybe like take a song that you had and sort of, chop it up and change it? Because I know sometimes that could be kind of like a hard pill to swallow. And I know a lot of people don't like to admit that, because at the end of the day, a producer is, they're a producer for a reason because, they have a good acumen for that sort of thing. But I mean, what was that experience like, like kind of having, some changes done to some stuff and, maybe you're kind of looking at it like at first glance, like, oh man, like I thought this was a perfect song. And now all of a sudden, the pre-chorus gets changed, the bridge gets changed and all that kind of stuff,
For sure. Yeah. I think when we first did our first EP, Nothing More Than This, it was also with Tim. And we were just like recording that in his bedroom, but he was still like producing and, obviously giving his opinion on stuff. And also as a band, like we really didn't know who we were. I was super young. I think I was like 19 when we recorded that or something like that. So, that was kind of a tough pill to swallow for like me at the time. I think by like at this point now, I've kind of gone through it enough and we've done enough. And I think like I know what I'm trying to accomplish now and kind of I think how to get there for the most part. And if I don't, luckily like Tim is a great person to kind of bounce things off of. He also is just like such a musical person. He's such a natural with it all. I think like the guy, if you creep his Instagram, I think it's just at Tim Creviston. He just has like videos of him like just tapping and doing the whole like thing, like sweep picking the whole like nine, like he shreds. So
love it.
And not only that, like he does it like on like acoustic and he's an amazing bass player. And him and I really bonded over the fact that in a lot of my like song demos or whatever, I was just putting like these ridiculous like bass lines in because I've always thought that was kind of a cool thing that pop punk did, but not necessarily a lot of other like rock genres were doing at the time. I think like even just back to obviously like old Blink and stuff, there's some cool lines in there. I think that Neck Deep record that came out a couple years ago had like some really tasty stuff on that. at least just in terms of like punk bass, right?
Yeah.
Obviously like Less Than Jake is like crazy for all of that, right? So yeah, just kind of imparting a little bit of that on this record. And I feel like a lot of producers might have been like, hey, like maybe let's like simplify that a little bit, or so we can let it ride. But I don't think it like necessarily covers anything up. It just kind of adds that that nice little like flourish or variation to kind of different sections. And it's like synced up with some drum fills and some really cool parts. And I think it really ties it all together. So to answer your question, long story short, it was great. I love working with Tim. So
cool. So I guess my question for you is about the song Metaphors. Is that going to be on the upcoming release, or is that just a standalone single?
So it's not going to be on the upcoming release. That song actually, I wrote it after we'd already finished the like recording of Waiting for Your Colors. Yeah. So I think that's why, like, I feel like if you listen to Tough Love and then you listen to Metaphors, like it's a very different. It's obviously like, we're the same band or whatever. It's not like it's a quantum leap in any direction or whatever, but it's definitely like a change. I think it's a little more poppy, but also like we're going a bit more kind of heavy on some vocal stuff. And I think just trying to write like catchier songs to a degree, right? That are still, I guess, saying something. I don't know. But yeah, I would have loved to include it on the record, but I think it kind of sits best as a standalone there.
Awesome.
So yeah, just a one-off, but I don't know. I honestly consider it kind of in the same like era. I think it's just with all the delays and I know like vinyl production and stuff like that, I think it was just like too late to once we had to submit it.
Yeah, that's a tough thing in itself that we've discussed many times, and it just burns a fire in my brain. So I hate talking about it. But so one of the things I did want to touch upon, because you sort of mentioned it, that Tough Love came out, and whatever touring plans you guys had, you kind of had to drop the hammer on because of COVID. And so you had these 7 songs that really didn't get much play in terms of getting out there and gigging. So, now with this new record coming out, and I'm sure you have touring plans and all that kind of great stuff. How are the sets going to look like? Is it kind of tough? Because I mean, like, you've got these songs that are already out there in the universe that I'm sure people are going to want to hear and sing along to, but at the same time, you've got this whole new breadth of work that I'm sure you guys are ultra proud of, and you want to get that out there as well. So, how have you kind of navigated that? Like, what are your sets looking like?
Yeah, we actually haven't really fully put together anything quite yet. We played a show back in December. That was our first show in like 2 years.
Awesome.
And the set was mostly just Tough Love stuff. And then we played Team Wiped and we played Metaphors.
Okay.
So it was just an opening set. Cool. So we only did 8 songs on that one. But yeah, so I mean, there's 2 from Nothing More Than This, 4 from Tough Love, and then just 2 new ones. So probably I would imagine a split, something like that. If all goes according to plan, we should be on the road through June into July, with the record coming out sometime in there, without revealing too much. So obviously we'll be on the road a little bit before the record's out. So I think as much as I would love to just like do full like sets of the record, I think we'll have to do some older stuff too, but that's all good. I think those songs are a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess my question is about that night that you talked about in December, because if I'm not mistaken, that was the show with Youth Fountain, right? Sure was. Yeah. So tell me, like, to get back out there again for the first time after 2 years, your homies with Youth Fountain, they're kind of under a new identity, new kind of formula. And then it's a hometown show. I'm assuming it probably sold out or was close to selling out. So like walk us through that night.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, honestly. Just being able to get back up on stage and do it again after kind of that long. I also have like a side project called Later Days that actually I'd played a show the night before. So I think that had kind of taken the most of the jitters away, which was nice. So I just kind of got to just like play the show, which actually was honestly fun, because I think sometimes, especially like when you haven't done it a while, you can like psych yourself out a little bit. So kind of having that weight off was awesome. But that show was awesome. Like seeing, it was unfortunately like a COVID capacity, so I think it was only half cap, but it was still probably like well up over 100 in a pretty small room. There's supposed to be like chairs, and it was like a seated show or whatever, but I mean, people ended up moving chairs and like moshing and stuff. So like that was great to see. Good to see like a lot of friends that I hadn't even seen in, year and a half, 2 years, like since COVID started basically. Right. And yeah, it's I don't know, cool to see that people, I guess to some degree, still care about kind of what we're doing, what our bands are doing in Vancouver. So yeah, always a good thing.
I was looking at your Spotify Wrap over the past couple of years, and you guys broke 1 million yearly streams, and considering all things that you guys had to deal with, putting a record out in the middle of COVID, not being able to tour, like that must have lit a fire under you guys to keep going, right?
Yeah, to a degree. I think like I don't necessarily know if any of us really particularly buy into the streams aspect of it, or kind of the obviously like in terms of being able to sustain yourself like as an artist, you need an audience of some capacity, right?
Yeah.
But I think at this point, like most of us are just kind of in it because we enjoy doing it and we like writing music, and I think like this record really showed us that kind of side of it and how great that side of it can be, and kind of distancing yourself almost from that. Like it was awesome and super rewarding to hit that and to see like, whoa, like 1 million streams on this thing that we just kind of did, I guess, you know what I mean, just like songs that we wrote in our whatever living rooms or closets or wherever, right? So it's yeah, that's super rewarding. I don't necessarily know if we're too kind of wrapped up in that these days, but regardless, I mean, fingers crossed this record will even do better.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to know that a lot of ears are getting onto your stuff, which is really, really important. But at the same time, I kind of agree with you. At a certain point, the art kind of just supersedes the analytics, as they say. But I mean, it's a good thing, and I mean, obviously, you guys gained a lot of traction with Tough Love, and I'm sure this record is going to do great things for you guys. So just going back to kind of the writing process and kind of cultivating this record, I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the influences that you guys kind of sought when you were. I guess the question I should ask is this: so Tough Love versus Waiting for Your Colors. What changed in your listening habits as a band that maybe influenced some of how this new record sounds versus how Tough Love sounded?
That's a really thoughtful question, first of all. But yeah, you know what? I almost like to think of it, at least for myself. I don't know about the other guys, but like personally speaking, I think like well before even we did Tough Love, my kind of like listening had kind of shifted away from a lot of like punk and like pop punk and making metal and more into kind of like pop and indie, and now even like a little bit of country and a little, what I mean? Just like a little bit of kind of everything, and like, going back and listening to like stuff from like the 70s and 80s and all that. Oh yeah. I've just started kind of diving into the Beatles a little bit. Never got into music kids. Like that's kind of, you know what I mean? I've kind of I personally started that shift, I think, a long before even Tough Love. But I feel like as a writer, like when I was writing stuff for Tough Love, it kind of felt like I was trying to write something that I thought a band should sound like. Whereas with like this record, I didn't think even about like, I was just like writing just because like COVID had just started, whatever, right? It was just like things were coming out and that's what was happening. So it was almost like instead of almost trying to force a vision or I don't know what you call it onto like this song or what the record is or what the record should be. It was just kind of like a collection, I think, of songs that were written even across like varying times. Obviously, like there's one song on the record it's the 9th track called Kills the Loved, Haunts the Free. Fraser had that song, I think, like 6 or 7 years ago. It's about one of his family members that was I believe had like terminal cancer or something like that. And he was kind of like away, and just kind of dealing and navigating with that, right? And I remember hearing that song when I first met him. He just had like a demo of it on his computer, and like I kind of knew at that moment, I was like, this is like obviously super rough, but I think just like the power behind it was definitely there. And I told him, I was like, we're gonna use this one day. You don't know it, but it's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, like, you know, again, 6 years later, it's like we were able to kind of record that. So yeah, I think a lot of variation, but overall, I think like we really came into our own as a band. And I feel like before I wasn't necessarily able to say that like Chief State sounded like this, but I think now there's something I think you could point to be like, okay, this is what this band sounds like. And like, I guess it's like a little bit derivative in that like it's pop punk at this point. Like, you know, most things have kind of been done in one shape or form at some point. Like, and, you know, unless you're Origami Angel, you're not, you know, really reinventing the wheel there.
Sure.
You know, great band. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I actually,
they really are so good. Yeah. But like, there's something to be said about like the cathartic feeling about, you know, writing stuff that you don't need to feel pigeonholed about. Right. I mean, like, and pop punk, I think in 2022 and even probably, you know, a couple of years before this has, I think has changed so much, and it can be a lot of different things. And, you know, I cite a record like Proper Dose by The Story So Far, right, as like something that pop punk can be, right? Like it can still feel like pop punk, but it doesn't have to have, you know, like those 808 bass drops, and it doesn't have to have like, you know, those like booming anthemic choruses constantly. It can be what you want it to be.
Sure.
And I think that's a great thing. I really do. And I think that as we like, as the world just like kind of navigates, you know, the importance of being able to, you know, kind of showcase your own styles and not have to kind of like, you know, bake yourself into a cake that, you know, everybody is going to eat. You know, you can just kind of realize that like, hey, listen, you know, you could eat this cake, you could tell me you don't like it, but at the end of the day, it's my fucking cake, you know? So that's kind of the way I think about it, truthfully.
Of course. And on the note of like Proper Dose too, like that album in particular, I think was a huge influence on a lot of, I think like the instrumental parts of the record, especially. There's, I remember seeing like an Instagram video, I think of, I think it's in Keep It Up. There's like that guitar part, but they put it through like a talk box. So it kind of sounds like it's almost like a wah pedal, but it's obviously like with a voice just going like making weird noises or whatever. And I like that kind of opened my mind up a lot to being able to like use just guitar effects that like you'd probably use when you first like started playing guitar, because like it was probably like your, you know, uncle or something that got you into it, and he really liked like, I don't know, like Metallica or something. So now you have like all these, like you have like a flanger and like a phaser and like a bunch of other like weird, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. Right. Just going back to that, it would literally be, I'd get to a part and I, you know, think like if I couldn't really think of a really compelling, like melodic guitar lead or something, sometimes I'd just like put a droning, like high chord and then just like affect it with a bunch of different things, and that's the lead now, right? So
and I mean,
just, not being afraid to do that.
And you shouldn't be. I mean, you know, that goes back to, we were just talking about the Beatles before. I mean, that goes back to Tomorrow Never Knows, right? I mean, like they literally recorded that on just like a constant circular platform that just kept moving, so it had this overarching effect of like kind of going far away and then coming near and going far away. And it's just like, you know, they're, you know, pop punk doesn't just have to be like, you know, like I hearken it back to like the early 2000s because I'm that old, but you know, like it doesn't have to be like, you know, your shitty Mexican Strat and like a Metal Zone pedal. Like it can be whatever you want.
You don't have to call us out like that, man.
But no, dude, but that's the truth. But really, really excited to kind of, you know, hear what's on the horizon for you in terms of the new record. So before we kind of jump into talking a little bit of Canucks hockey, I just want to talk a little bit about our sponsor in DraftKings. And as I cough my life away, you know, we're kind of still navigating, some of the better parts that are happening in the hockey season. For us Islander fans, it kind of seems like it's almost over. But if you were like a Knicks fan too, you'd probably also feel that it's over. But nonetheless, God, it's such a bummer. New York sports is such a bummer to me. Anyways, DraftKings is an official sports betting partner on the NBA, and this particular deal is really, really awesome. It's actually too good to pass up. So I don't like this music. I don't like it. But listen, new customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. So it's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take your shot at a big payday. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy basketball contests, and they're giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and you can use that promo code THPN, the Hockey Podcast Network, THPN, even though we're talking about the NBA. THPN, the Hockey Podcast Network. Just bet $1. Any NBA team get $150 in free bets if they win. And that's promo code THPN. And that's at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Remember, you got to be 21 years or older. Minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit. And if you have a gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, you can call or text the Tennessee Red Line, which is at 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, you can call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, you can call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Promo code THPN. Get started. So it's hard to read that with this weird background music. It's
so good.
It's not as good as you think it is.
I don't know. We were jamming out. It was great.
I like to keep you on your toes. I want to just see how professional you are, Tom. If you're going to do it over some lo-fi. You're
going to do the read next time, and I'm just going to make you do it over like Black Bubblegum by the Dillinger Escape Plan, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So, but it's cool because, DraftKings is just one of those things where it's like, it's kind of starting to develop in all these different states. And, there's a lot of different sportsbooks apps and things like that. I think it kind of gives people an extra edge when they're trying to get reinvested in sports. Like me as an Islander fan, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. I try to be as professional as I can. But, as an Islander fan who it's tough to be, invested just because they're playing so poorly, it's great to kind of have like an extra thing to latch on to keep myself invested in the NHL. On that note, obviously you being a Vancouver Canucks fan, you're probably used to those same ups and downs, kind of them being having a fantastic squad and then maybe not so much and then kind of going up and down. So
pain's part of it, man.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean that's hockey in a nutshell. I mean if you're not getting ready for pain, I don't know what you're getting ready for. But so let's talk the Canucks season so far. Kind of been a lot of ups and downs that there has been for a lot of the NHL teams. But over there on the West Coast, you guys now having the Kraken as a part of the whole kind of scape there, I guess. But what's been positive for you guys for the Canucks season so far? What have you been hanging on to in terms of some hope for the future?
2 words: Thatcher Demko. That's all. End.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's obviously been I would say more often than not, it's been not a great story this year, despite the record. I think almost anyone around here will tell you that it's because of Demko. Basically, he's just stealing games left and right. It's nuts. So yeah, I mean, there's that. I think finally, especially in recent weeks, you've seen like kind of a couple other players start to turn around. I know Patterson's been like hot lately, which is great. He was off to a slow start, and they said he was kind of injured at the beginning of the season too. But obviously, no one was saying anything, so that would probably explain a bit of that. But yeah, there's been a lot of highs and lows, more lows than highs for sure. The season kind of started off pretty terribly and ended with like chants throughout the arena to like fire the GM and like for the owner to sell the team and stuff. So that was pretty wild. I think like a jersey got thrown on the ice when they were playing the Penguins. And I just remember watching the video of like the Penguins player like being like, okay, you guys like take you don't want to do this, like take it, don't, come on, like doesn't have to go down like this. And then the next day they fired everybody. So I don't know, like as a fan, in terms of like the long-term outlook, it seems pretty positive now. They hired like basically everyone from Pittsburgh, so that's excellent. I guess. And the team's been like kind of winning, but then when they've been losing, it's been like really bad. So I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. Probably not the playoffs, but like I'd enjoy that still. So yeah.
I feel like as Islander fans, under like I guess in the Tavares era, we had so many seasons.
The dark times.
They kind of were like it's hard to think that like our dark times had a superstar of the NHL like on our team, but it's true. Like there were some really dark years, but a lot of times we were exactly in the same position that you guys are in, where we're like 4 or 5 points out of that like last wild card. Like, do we squeak in and then just like lose first round? And like that was basically like the 10 years that Tavares was on the Islanders. And like honestly, I feel like that might be one of the worst positions to be in, because like if you get into the playoffs, it's like, we're going to have to play the best team in the conference. Like, this is going to be a tough uphill battle. Yes, it happens in the NHL, but it's still like, it's tough. And then like, you also then don't get a great draft pick. So then it's really hard to like build those next couple of years. And like,
exactly,
I think that was what plagued the Islanders, is we're getting like mid first round draft picks that they're kind of a toss up at that point, where you're like, maybe these guys make the NHL, maybe they don't make it to the NHL. And a lot of those guys that we did draft aren't in the NHL right now. So it's a tough spot to be in. So
100%.
How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I don't want to throw shade on John Tavares' name, but I'm just saying Toronto also hasn't made it out of the first round since he's got there. So I'm not a mathematician, but I see a common denominator. No, but in all seriousness, no, I mean, like, you got to think, like, there's 16 playoff spots every year. There's, I guess, 32 teams now. So half will make it, half will not.
Yep.
And those who are kind of in, I would say basically, if you're not like top in your division, essentially, or like, if you don't have a significant lead by around this time in the season, right, you're either looking to divest yourself of all of your playoff interest, or aggressively acquire everyone else's stuff that they're selling, right? So I think, it's just like a gamble year to year, right? And depending, obviously, I would imagine on like certain owners are going to be more inclined to like be like, okay, chips in, like, let's just get some playoff games, whatever, versus, hey, actually, we would like a championship. We would like to, maybe this isn't the year. It doesn't look very sustainable. Doesn't really look like we'll go too far. So, I think just in general, it's just a tough thing to balance, obviously, because like as a fan, you want to see your team win. You don't want to see your team like perpetually lose like over and over and over again, or even get somewhat close to maybe having an opportunity to win but really never get there, or the times they do, it's kind of really disappointing. I think that's really been the story of at least Vancouver hockey. Is a couple moments of glory in there, but for the most part, it's been really just disappointment. I mean, we've never won still. So yeah.
So close. If you guys just would have beat the Rangers in 94, you would have made Tom and my own life a lot better.
Yeah, that would have been great. And we can all blame Vancouver's favorite supervillain, Mark Messier, for that. So,
yeah. I mean, it's one of the only times in the universe where someone says they're going to win and then they actually win. There's like Joe Namath and Mark Messier.
kicked Linden in the ribs when he was down. Like he like broke his ribs and then like stomped on him or something like that.
Yeah, Mark Messier is a bald piece of shit. That's what I can tell you.
True.
But
Mark Messier.
I definitely want to get back into this Mark Messier chat because I have feelings about it. But I want to talk about my boy from right here in Orlando, Florida, Quinn Hughes.
Oh yeah.
Who you guys have locked up for like 8 million years. But I remember that kind of draft class and them talking about like he's the kind of one of those top 5 defensemen that teams can build around. But I think he's been kind of I think like 3 full years essentially, including this year. Based on what you've seen out of him, what are you thinking? Do you think he's really going to be the chip to sort of start to build, a better organization around?
Yeah, there's no question. I think like he came in like super young, obviously, and like crushed it the first year. And then last year in a COVID season, didn't really crush it, but he was still really good offensively. I think like he was almost near a point per game for a defenseman, which is crazy.
Wow.
And he's only like 20 or 21 or something like that. So this season like rebounded quite a bit. Same deal. I think he's still top 10 in scoring with defensemen. And yeah, it's interesting to see because I don't think that, like Vancouver has had a defenseman like that before, who's been able to kind of control the offensive zone and patrol the blue line as well as he can. Like he can just kind of shake guys off and he can walk and he can dish and whatever. Right. So, I'm interested to see the guy in a couple more years because I think like the one thing that you might be able to slight him on is his shot because he is more of like a passer. Right.
Yeah.
But oftentimes getting that shot from the point's pretty important. Right. If you just want to, tips, deflections, whatever, right? So even just, taking a shot and banging in a rebound or something. So I think over time, you're just going to see that guy get like a lot better. And he's already like every time he steps on the ice, you can literally see he's like technically the best skater.
Oh yeah.
Effortless. He's playing like 30 minutes a night almost. I think some nights it's crazy.
Oh yeah. It's incredible. He's, the kind of duty he's pulling, but it's interesting. And then, you've got, a kind of a, an older soul in Ekman Larson there, just kind of like almost playing like the role of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Mentor.
Can't think of the word. Yeah, that's the one. He's kind of like,
look at that.
Yeah, right?
I finally get to put a word in Tom's mouth.
Yeah. But it's a cool thing, and you even got, like another old head, like, Travis Hamonic, who was, proud Islander for a long time.
Of course.
They're, kind of rounding it out. So, but I think it's, the interesting thing to see is probably going to be, in the next like year or two, how, really the offense shakes out. I know you've got, a couple of guys, there, you got your JT Miller and, I'm trying to like think because I'm like actually not looking at a roster right now, which is usually what I do. But
he'll just look at like a fantasy roster anyway.
I'll be like, yeah, you guys got
Mark Messier.
Yeah, Mark Messier. But no, I mean, like, it's always interesting to kind of look at just because in this in the relatively short-term contract era, which is kind of like where I think the game is right now, with the exception of like your real superstars, right? It's a lot of, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year kind of deals. And that leaves a lot open. And I think that's kind of a place where your offense is, if I'm not mistaken. I think other than like, what is it? Pedersen and maybe,
Garland, I believe.
Yeah,
he's at 5 now. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of 2, like 1, 2, and 3 year deals, which like at the same time, I think is kind of looking back at the last, if we look back the last 5 years of kind of Vancouver hockey and the types of deals that were signed over that, which was like a lot of money and a lot of term for guys that weren't really necessarily contributing a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of niche, more like utility guys. And in that deal for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, they shipped off all of them just to make the money work, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Obviously, there's a really good player coming back in Ekman Larson, but at the same time, he's signed for like I think another 6 or 7 years at like after the retained salary, it's like 7.6 or so. It's a lot, or 2, or I don't know. It's a lot of money for sure, and especially because it's been a flat cap, right? That's just when you factor in like Tyler Myers, I think he's making $6 million. So I think Vancouver has like the most expensive blue line in the league that's like not in a playoff spot. Or like, or they're like top 3 or something. It's like it's actually crazy. So as far as the rest of the forwards go, I mean, like Pettersson's there for 3 years. That's just a bridge. And again, you know, I think that probably could have gone long had a lot of the other previous contracts had not been signed, right? And really going back, I think, to about a year and a half, 2 years ago, after the 1920 season, just like the ownership and management here, I don't know if they just didn't want to spend or something like that, but there's a lot of reports of that. And they just kind of ended up letting a lot of the free agents go. Like they let Markstrom and Tanev go to Calgary. Look what kind of season they're having now. And like
insane.
Tanev quite affordably too. I think he's only making like $4 million. And they did the same with Toffoli that year too, which he just fetched a first round, trading again to Calgary. So it's kind of like, you know, all of these players were kind of here and something sort of was working. But because of decisions that had been made previously, it kind of handcuffed their ability to maybe be competitive with a lot of those. So as a fan, that's like, I think super disappointing. Right now, going into the season, everyone was really hopeful that the offense was actually going to be like pretty potent. Like they're, you know, putting out the lineups and thinking like Pettersson, Miller, and Besser as a first line, amazing. You got like Horvat probably and Pearson maybe still together with now you have Connor Garland. Like he usually leads like the league in like even strength point percentage because he's like not on the power play a lot, but he's still super efficient at scoring. You know, and then a third line of we have like Höglander and Podkolzin, and they're, you know, 2 rookies out of the 19 draft class, first and second round pick. Haven't necessarily produced a ton this year, but you know, they're still like super young. So the fact that they're kind of holding it down at that age is pretty impressive. So I think there's a lot there. It is just going to be the question of like the shorter contracts, and if you're able to really too. The interesting thing has been the emergence of the fourth line of Mott, Lamico, and Highmore. They're all like, I think just on like 1-year deals, I believe. But for, I think Lamico, since the new coach has come in, I've read something that he's played 20 games and he has like 11 points or something, like on the fourth line. Yeah. Not getting like any power play time at all. It's all like even strength or PK. They're matching up like hard against like, I think in Toronto, they matched up against the Matthews line and like, you know, crazy assignments, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like that's kind of, that's like the fourth line dream, as they say. It's like, you know, you kind of are sitting there on like a one year deal, and all of a sudden you show everyone that you can play and make it work. And then, you know, that's kind of the whole idea with the Islanders. I mean, you know, that's why, you know, Zeker, Martin, and you know, Cal are, you know, locked in for what they're locked in for. But let's go back in time a little bit. Let's talk a little 2011, just because I'd love to know. As rough as it is, at least you're able to say an oof because you got to the Stanley Cup Finals, which I don't even get the opportunity to oof that. But you know, I'm sure you remember where you were Game 7. I mean, like it sucked because for me, watching the Bruins win anything. It just goes back to this one kid, Mikey, and I went to high school with, who every time I think of the Bruins, I just think of like drop kicking him off the face of the earth. And I won't mention his name, but Mikey knows who I'm talking about. And it's just like it was a rough one. And you know, I found it so interesting that, like, you know, since the early 90s, right? I mean, like a Canadian team hasn't been able to raise the cup, and you know, this is another instance of one of them just getting so close. But for Game 7 at least, you know, do you remember where you were? Do you remember who you were watching with? Do you remember kind of how you were feeling? I mean, I know how you were going to tell me that you're going to be feeling, and that's fine, but would just love to kind of hear your history about that.
I think almost any like Vancouver fan will tell you that going into Game 7, they probably had a weird feeling that it was going to go very poorly because after game 5, Vancouver won game 5 at home, had a chance to close it out game 6 in Boston, and got the wheels beat off him. It was like, I think it was like 8-0 or something like that. Like just wacky stuff. So not a lot of confidence after that, right? You just have the team that kind of came back and just really put it to you, and now you're coming back at home. This is the last game. I don't know. I think especially obviously I wasn't like alive for the 94-82 cup runs at all. So no frame of reference on that. But I can only imagine that having that knowledge in mind, if like you had lived through that and seeing this go down the way it did, you just kind of feel like a bad thing's going to happen. And I think that's kind of where most like Canucks fans are at most of the time is like tuning in a game. You're like, this is either going to be like decent or this is going to go like extremely badly. You can't, there's no in between. But game 7, I was at home. I was just watching with my dad, and I just remember like being like, yeah, this sucks. I think we turned it off like with like 5 minutes left because it was like 4-0 or something, and there was just nothing happening.
Well, at least you guys didn't lose 1-0 on a shorthanded goal.
Yeah,
like we did to not make it to the Stanley Cup, and it was rough this past year. But yeah, it is what it is. Hockey.
That was actually wild. I remember, like, I was definitely rooting for the Islanders in that series against the Lightning because, like, I don't know, it was cool. I guess that Tampa was able to do it back to back, but at the same time, like, the fact that it was that close at that juncture, it was, I don't know. I thought that would have been an interesting final.
Yeah, it could have been.
But also, Montreal might have won the final in that case too. You never know.
Yeah, and then Canada would just burn to the ground.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Canada, at least Vancouver, sort of almost burned to the ground after those finals, and 94 too. Vancouver doesn't like losing,
and like a World Junior, right? Like, weren't there riots after one of the World Juniors too?
I don't know. There might have been.
Either way, Canada and hockey, crazy.
Don't mess with it.
So I do want to talk just because of, geographically where you guys are located. Seattle got their new team, and it's about, 2.5 hours from you guys? 2 hours from you?
Yeah, closer to, if you're driving because of the border crossing too, I would say like realistically door to door, probably like 4, but that's still like nothing.
So I guess this season, since the border is still kind of closed for the most part, do you know anyone that has like made the trek from Vancouver? Because like, can't you fly over?
You can, and you can drive now too. It's just it's not necessarily the getting into America that's the problem. It's been the COVID testing coming back to get back into Canada. Our government was requiring that we needed a PCR test taken within 72 hours to get back in. But PCR tests usually take at least 24 to process, unless you pay for the super rapid ones. And you can't like so for a day trip or just like a quick little overnighter. So, do that. Not really, I think, realistic for most people. On top of that, too, like ticket prices in Seattle, because it's their first season, are just kind of out. Like they're crazy. I think for like upper bowl, like way in the nosebleeds, it's like well over like 150 US a ticket or something like that. At least when I looked for a Canucks game, it was. Which I would imagine they probably like hike it up because it's the regional rivalry or whatever, but still, kind of makes for an expensive time. But I'm sure like next season, or whenever like restrictions kind of change around like testing for re-entry, I would imagine that a lot more people would go, because there's a lot of people from Vancouver and the surrounding areas that'll go down to Seattle to like watch the Seahawks and stuff. So and like even back to music too, like I will go to Seattle to like see certain like concerts, like if if the bands are coming through Van, and like I like them enough, I'll drive down there for the night or whatever.
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we get that in Orlando too, just because you know, it can be tough. You know, Orlando's one of those things where, you know, if you're going into Florida, especially, you know, into Central Florida, or even if you're trying to get into South Florida, like you really have no other option. You got to go back up, right? So you go down, you go back up. And I kind of feel like that's a lot of, you know, what can happen on the West Coast in Vancouver, I think, especially because, like, other than that, I mean, like you'd really have to kind of like go up to Vancouver and then probably shoot back down, you know, and then come back across, you know, west to east. So it can be tough. I get that. But, you know, as far as like, tours, and I guess I just would love to kind of chat about that a little bit, you know, while we still have you there. So, you know, as far as like Vancouver is concerned, you know, and I know probably pre-COVID, you know, the border was a lot easier to navigate, but did you find that like a lot of like bigger tours would kind of like extend themselves into Vancouver, or was it still not really very much so? No,
it honestly depends. I think like it's a little bit disappointing, but kind of through, I would say over the last, it's probably been happening for longer, but like at least since I've noticed for the last kind of 5-6 years, like less and less artists are coming through, at least especially in like at least pop punk and like alternative music, if you will. Okay. Or if they are coming through, it's not necessarily like the bigger artists that might be playing like club shows, like kind of whatever 1,500, 2,000 cap rooms or something like that. So you're not really getting like the big shows. You're either getting the really big like stadium size shows, or you're getting kind of like a couple hundred or like, you know, 100 cap kind of rooms, and still like bands that are obviously like still really cool and some of my favorite, but that are, you know, it's a small room. There's just not a lot of either. I don't know if it's like a case of maybe not like great promotion, or if it's not great, like just not popular, or if it's just the information isn't getting out to people, or maybe people just like don't like it. I don't know.
Could be,
I really can't put my finger on it, but it's been I think a lot of that. So more often than not, it is kind of like if it is an artist that you really want to see, usually you got to go to Seattle. Yeah. And even then, it's kind of a crapshoot if they'll even hit like the Pacific Northwest at all. Because like, like even from like a driving perspective, most tours will even like just skip that part of the world, so they don't have to cross like 4 mountain ranges or whatever it is.
I was gonna say
you just go Bay Area and then you rip over to like Utah or something. Yeah, right. So
it's a tough thing like to think about. I'm spoiled. Like that's really all I can say is I grew up on Long Island, which was, you know, an hour away from Manhattan, where every tour came to. And then it just so happened to be that when Mikey and I were growing up, Long Island was a hotbed for this kind of music. So a lot of alternative music came to Long Island. And now I'm in Orlando, which is a relatively big hotbed for this kind of music. And Mikey's in Charlotte, which, you know, is another kind of major market. You know, I would probably say not as much comes to Charlotte as does to Orlando. But still, I mean, like, we're spoiled. I mean, like, I can't imagine what it must be like to live in like middle America, or like somewhere in like Nebraska, where like you have to go, like, God forbid you were into this kind of music, like you'd have to go like 6 hours in any direction to see anything, or just hope that like one of your favorite bands was like kind enough to do like a secondary market style tour. Like, you know, call out the Wonder Years again. Like, they're one of those bands that did that. Like, I forget what it was, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but they're like, hey, we're going to go on this like secondary market, like smaller kind of run where we're going to all of these like different areas that we normally don't touch. And it's like, I can't imagine, like, someone in Omaha is probably like, oh, thank God. Like, this might be my only opportunity to see this band I love without having to like buy plane tickets. And like, I can't imagine that, because like, and I mean, you being in Vancouver, like obviously you have that sentiment to a degree, because if you want to see a tour, you've got to make a 4-hour hike. And it's like, I've never had to do that. So,
yeah. I mean, it is like a challenge. I mean, shout out to all of our friends in Omaha too. Like, funnily enough, we've actually been through Omaha twice. Like both times we've been down in the States, we've gone through Omaha for whatever reason. And they've been nothing but kind to us. great community they got there.
Hell
No, I mean, obviously it is kind of a challenge, I think, to be able to see like shows and stuff like that are, you know, that far away and having to do that, and or just kind of missing out or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I think, like, to be honest, some of the like my fondest memories are from you know, going down to Seattle with my friends to see a show, and then like driving back to Vancouver and getting back at like 3 a.m. Like, you know, like we do that quite often, like before COVID when I was a little younger, and you know, so it almost turns it into a bit more of like an event, I guess. But at the same time, you know, I'm not gonna like pretend that it's like the worst thing on earth or anything like that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you could be Calgary, right?
Yeah. Oh no, honestly, like Vancouver, especially like Toronto, obviously has it the best for like getting stuff like that, because like everyone will just roll through Toronto, obviously, right? Biggest city, probably makes sense.
Because of
it's
Drake.
bigger than like some U.S. cities in the area, right? So, you know, aside from having to cross border, kind of makes sense. Usually, if there's like Toronto, sometimes they'll do Montreal because that's only like 5 hours away. But other than that, like, you know, no one's rolling through Saskatoon or Winnipeg.
Yeah,
or Thunder Bay. So
yeah, right.
You know,
and you know, just like now that I realize, like talking about like Omaha, Nebraska, like I like that probably wasn't the best example to give, because like Saddle Creek is in Omaha, and like Cursive rules and Bright Eyes rule and Desaparecidos rule and the Faint rule, and they're all from Omaha. So maybe I should have said like Sioux Falls, South Dakota or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Don't talk shit about the Spill Canvas.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're the one band from South Dakota. Hi Bryce, how are you? But yeah. So I mean, like, you know, but it's great that Canada itself, I mean, has like a pretty rich, you know, like kind of pop punk and alternative scene to themselves. I mean, like, you know, there are times where, you know, as an American, like I, you know, there are bands that I've wanted to see that I've only had the opportunity to see once or twice because they simply couldn't come across the border, you know, as often. I mean, one of my favorite bands, probably of all time, were Moneen. I love Moneen, like one of my favorite bands. And I had the opportunity, I think, to see them twice, but like, you know, they would play in Canada like all the time, you know, and the same deal with like, you know, a lot of other, you know, Canadian bands, and Alexis on Fire and City in Color, and, you know, Living with Lions, and like all these bands that like didn't really make it to the States as often. And you guys got them, which is great. You know, I love that, but I'm jealous, man. I wish I could just like take a helicopter that like goes like the speed of light and just get to places and then be like, I'm here, play me a song, you know, but doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, the flight to Orlando is only like, I think it's only like 4 hours or something like that to Vancouver. So
Vancouver's a place I'm going to tell you, man, I'm still trying to coerce my wife into doing it. I really want to do Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. Like I want to do that little kind of
do it
arc there, man.
Yeah.
My one of my good friends who we've had on the show, my buddy Joe, lived in Vancouver for a spell and said it's one of the most beautiful places he's ever been a part of. So
Definitely.
Mad respect,
I would
man.
say so.
Oh, dude,
I would say so. I'm not biased.
Nick posted a picture from like one of your apartments, or maybe you were just like,
oh yeah, no, that was, I think that was my old apartment. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I was like, that's real, huh? That's like an apartment that someone I know can afford, because like you would think a view like that would be like $1 million view. Like, you know,
yeah,
I think
mean,
of New York
it
City
is
and shit.
like it straight up is in that like the apartment I was renting was probably like worth that much or whatever. We just like crammed enough people in there that it made it work for the moment. And like luckily too, like I don't know what happened with that place. Actually, it was Fraser. He had somehow stumbled into this apartment with like a sick view. It was like right downtown, right above like Rogers Arena, like where the Canucks play. And it was like, I guess like a landlord who I probably bought the place like ages ago. And I think the property had just like appreciated so much in value that she didn't really care too much about like specifically what she was making on rent. So the rent hadn't been raised like ever. So by the time like we had taken over, because it had just been passed on from like friend to friend to friend, and there had been like a handoff there with the landlord, we were just getting like stupid cheap rent, like right downtown, beautiful view. So bit of a lucky case there for sure. But Vancouver in general, honestly, like especially in the summer, I don't think you can beat it. Yeah,
love that. I absolutely love that. So Nick, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to be on here with us.
Thanks for having me.
one. Yeah, of course, man. I have one final question, and I'm sure Mikey will as well. But for me, what I would really love to know, so kind of regarding, the new record, coming out, hopefully in the next few months, whatever kind of plans you have to tour around them, which is awesome. Will we see this? I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but will we see this on vinyl?
Oh yeah.
Number one. And number two, what is the most limited colorway? And number three, can I have it?
To answer your question, yes, there will be vinyl. Two, I don't think there's I think there's probably just going to be two colorways, and there'll probably be equal quantity. And three, can you have it? Of course. I mean, anyone can have it, unless apparently you're in a certain country, which you probably can't have anything from. Can't have this side of the ocean. So
can't have anything right now if you're. Yeah. If you're in that predicament, you sure can. But awesome. That is great to hear. I always get excited when, bands I like that have kind of, weren't on my radar, all of a sudden have, an opportunity to kind of put stuff out in that form, just because it's such a beautiful art form. It's so cool to have. So super duper excited to hear that that'll be happening, and super duper excited to hear that I'll have to make a tiny investment in that. So
yeah, all the info on that. I don't believe it'll be coming out with this coming single. So we'll be putting Team Wiped out March 10th to the 4th, something like that. Let me get the actual date, so I seem somewhat prepared here.
Go for it.
Yeah, it is going to be on March. Yeah, actually March 11th there. So
nice.
Next Friday, because it's the 1st right now. So that song's called Team Wiped, and then I believe all the announcements about like the album and all the vinyl and stuff like that will be made kind of shortly after that.
Awesome.
With kind of 3 more songs until it comes out in July. So
hell yeah. So Nick, are we expecting a music video for Team Wiped?
Oh, you sure are. Yeah, actually, on that note, the music video for 3 of our 4 singles were filmed by Miguel Barbosa, Yeah Films. He's done loads of videos for a lot of like pop punk bands in Canada, like around Toronto, and also beyond this rate too. So he actually just moved to Vancouver last year, and we're super stoked to link up with him. So I think the video for Team Wiped is pretty cool, and there'll be one out with that on, I believe it'll be Friday, March 11th.
Sweet. Love to hear that. And I guess I have one follow-up question, just because I'm curious. Mutant League, I guess a couple of years ago, Belmont was like at the peak, and they were crushing it for Mutant League. Have they now passed the torch on to you? And do you feel like you guys have to help get Mutant League out there and recognized as like the premier independent label?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was like a passing of the torch or anything like that. I don't really feel like I don't even think we're like the premier band on like Mutant League. I mean, I certainly don't see like us as that. Maybe I don't know if that is like the case or not, but I don't know. I think like we're super proud to be on Mutant League and to be partnered with Nate and Alex again, and like those guys have done nothing but good things for our careers. Like they've really taken us from the ground up, like I was saying earlier, kind of when we were recording Nothing More Than This and like working with Tim, like we had no clue what we were doing, you know what I mean? And just like somehow managed to get 4 songs together that sounded decent, that kind of sparked enough interest where we were able to turn that into a deal, and then kind of here we are, right? I don't necessarily know that we haven't really had that whole again, like the viral moment, if you will, where like loads of people are like really like digging one song in particular. Not that you need that, but I think like Belmont was doing that a lot for Mutant League, just in various ways. When they were releasing those like overstepping and stuff like that, like I don't think that had necessarily been done to that degree before that way. Kind of mixing in the almost like proggy, metal-y elements into pop punk, but still having it like, super bouncy, but also like weirdly mathy in a way too, with some of like the fills and stuff. It was really cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're carrying the torch necessarily, but if we are, I guess so. We'll do it.
Carry away, my friend. Love
Let's
to
go.
hear it. So, Nik, man, thank you so much for being on here with us again. We'll have you back a million times. Hopefully, the next time we have you back, it'll be to celebrate the new record, or maybe it'll be to celebrate the Canucks success. I mean, it certainly won't be to celebrate the Islanders' success, because as of recording this, we're playing the Avs, and I guarantee you we're going to get beat like 14-0. So that's going to be great. I'm going to go drown my sorrows in Lucky Charms and soy milk. So on that note, hey, man, thank you so much for being with us. Always a pleasure. Really super stoked for what's to come for Chief State. And we can't wait to hear, the new jams and all that kind of stuff. I mean, technically we've heard them, but like everyone else, I'm really stoked for all of you to hear them. And this is the perks. If you want to hear some stuff early, you start your own hockey and music podcast, and then you'll get a cool perk like that. But until then, we're the perk guys. You're Nik. Thank you so much for being with us. You have a great rest of your night. Go Canucks. Go Chief State. Vancouver. The end.
True. And also go Canucks on Thursday against the Islanders.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It'll either go great or badly for one of us.
I could probably tell you how it's going to go, especially if Char is going to be on the ice. I don't know if he still has legs left. I don't know, but we'll see. But on that note, it's been real. Thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you on the other side. But awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Great night, man. You bet.
Yep. See you, Nik.
Cheers.